Let's move on now and head further towards the Middle East. And a latest protest and demand for the release of hostages. Relatives of Israeli hostages have set sail in a flotilla. This is being presented as allowing them to approach the Gaza Strip and get close to their loved ones. More than 20 people boarded several sailboats that departed from the coastal city of Ashkelon, carrying yellow flags and posters bearing the images of the hostages as they shouted their names. The vessel sailed some 2 nautical miles away from Ashkelon before turning back and never reached closer than 5 nautical miles from Gaza's waters. Each boat expected to carry out 3 symbolic actions. 1, calling out with megaphones towards Gaza's shore. 2, broadcasting the Mayday maritime emergency signal. And finally, throwing lifebuoys into the sea. Let's now listen to what the families had to say.
I'm Alon's father, and Alon's for many days in the tunnels in Gaza. I'm fighting for him every place from everywhere I can come. Today, we came from the sea to Gaza to try to save Alon and all the hostages.
Move on. And suspected vandals defaced the Paris office of Israeli national airline El Al, painting the entrance with red slogans including Free Palestine. The act drew swift condemnation from French Transport Minister Philippe Tabarot, who wrote on X, "Acts of hatred and anti-Semitism have no place in our republic." Israel's ambassador to France, Joshua Zarka, also condemned the incident, calling it an attack, nothing more, nothing less, against an Israeli company and against the state of Israel. The Paris prosecutor's office has not yet responded to requests for details on the investigation. France has seen a rise in hate crimes since the Hamas attacks on Israel on October the 7th, 2023, and Israel's subsequent military campaign in Gaza. Official data published in March showed an 11% increase in racist, xenophobic or anti-religious crimes last year, though no breakdown by religion was provided. Well, joining us to discuss this topic, Matti Zweig, a geopolitical expert, joining us live from Israel. Matti, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Of course, an extremely difficult situation and one that we're talking about, of course, as consensus on the ongoing war in Gaza. It is so divided that it is so polarizing across many countries in the world. What's your initial reaction to seeing this vandalization of an Israeli-owned company building?
I think there is a lot of wars in this moment occurring at the same time and in different scenes. I mean, the first one we already know is with the soldiers from one side trying to do their duties in the middle of the civil population and in the middle of a big terrorist organization trying to maintain the power through keeping the hostages and everything. This we know. And then we have the war of propaganda, and then we have the war of getting the different media in the world to put attention on what is going on. After they were released some days ago, these terrible videos of the hostages that they look like in the time of the Holocaust, almost dying with half of their weight lost, or maybe more. And then all the countries, it's like they have opened their eyes again. There are not only poor Palestinians from one side, there are only poor Israelis being held unjustified way from the Hamas side for almost 2 years with the only purpose to stay in power. And this is very clear, and then even lead to all these countries like Germany, France, and England to say that they are postponing their declaration of a state of Palestine as a mean of putting an end to all this. Clearly, everything that Europe is saying is giving strength to a terrorist group like Hamas to be even in harder positions, and then things are locked. And then the families of the hostages are trying to do some kind of, acts like going close in vessels, like a offensive of the propaganda of the flotillas of freedom, so-called, and I think nobody is even getting closer to release the hostages in this way. Only the goodwill from both sides, especially from a group that is trying desperately, trying to hold their force and their strength and their power in the place when all the big actors are losing the patience and giving them what they want, even that this very simple, what it can be done, release the hostages and let's finish this war.
Yes, Matti, let's touch on those protests that are taking place, the families of hostages. Of course, such a difficult moment for them since the start of this conflict and those October 7th attacks. Of course, questions being raised about Benjamin Netanyahu's government, about how they have been carrying out this military operation. There has been a limited amount of success with releasing hostages and finding hostages since, of course, that ceasefire broke down. Do you think a shift is needed from the Netanyahu government and his military?
I am sorry that I didn't listen to all what you said, but I understand we are in a time that, like I said in the other interviews the other day, the extremists are touching themselves. I mean, the hard line of Hamas is touching now with the hard line of the political power in Israel from the government, and then you listen to extremists. When people don't speak about peace, they speak about war. And if Qatar and Trump and everybody is not going to put pressure on Hamas, this is going to continue, and it's going to give a tool in their hands of the extremists to say there is no alternative to go and conquer the Gaza Strip and let them stay in our control until one day they will be completely finished as a military movement, and then maybe we are going to rescue the hostages. Sorry to say that, life or death.
Matti, please do stay with us. Thank you for the insight on both of those topics. You will be staying with us for our next story as well. And Sudan's